My name is Scott Edinburgh, and I'm the founder of Personal MBA Coach. For those of you who are not familiar with myself and kind of what we do here, I'll give you a little bit of an overview of what we're doing here and what we'll kind of talk through today. But we will be talking about top application pitfalls to avoid, and we will also go over some like behind the scenes of the sort of admissions evaluation process. So that'll be helpful as you're evaluating yourself and thinking about how does this process work and how do admissions directors really kind of analyze your applications. So a little bit about myself, for those of you I haven't met previously. I went to MIT for undergrad, studied economics and business at Sloan, was a teaching assistant for one of the MBA courses as an undergrad, took a lot of MBA courses. Then I worked at Deloitte in consulting within strategy and operations and mergers and acquisitions for a number of years, and then went to Wharton for the MBA. Picked Wharton because when I was in high school, I took a couple summers of economics classes at Wharton, really liked the curriculum and wanted to go back for the MBA. And when I was there, I actually founded Personal MBA Coach. A couple of my good friends were applying to schools. They used some other firms to help them with their applications that had a bit more sort of standard structures as far as large teams of consultants, and they were paired with one of them. Long story short, I thought I wanted to improve their application quality a little bit. So I helped the first two friends get into Harvard, then another one got into Wharton, and we sort of expanded from there. And now 13 years later, I'm on the board of directors for the Association of International Graduate Admissions Consultants, which is a group of board members that do a lot of different things with sort of consultants and admissions directors. We have a conference every year with heads of admissions for all the top schools. Usually we'll analyze application profiles and sort of determine who gets accepted and rejected. Bit of a behind the scenes look into the process as we're evaluating some fake applications. And then I would typically give a presentation to the admissions directors as well, talk about a number of different things resulting from this applicant survey. Have 15 years of experience across industries, about 13 years of consulting experience, leading ranked consultant on a number of different websites out there, and was also a speaker at the GMAT conference last year. So overall, our clients get in with a 96% success rate, and over 5.5 million, actually now at this point, over 6 million in scholarships from last year. A little bit more about what Personal MBA Coach does, and then we can go into the top pitfalls. And please ask questions along the way. The way the software program is sort of designed, we'll go through the presentation, and then we'll be doing all the Q&A at the end. But please ask any and all questions that you'd like, and we'll answer them. And if it's super sort of relevant for the session, I'll sort of flip back and forth and try to answer them live as well. So feel free to just type anything that comes to your mind. We'll be happy to address them. So we offer complete support throughout the process. We start with early MBA planning, and that's for people that are not ready to apply yet, but you're thinking ahead. So you're applying in 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 years from now, and you want guidance on how to perfect yourself between now and when you apply. We have complete GMAT, GRE, and executive assessment tutoring. We have some of the best tutors in the industry. In-house software that we use to guide through the tutoring sessions with modules, sample questions, thousands of answers, full-length exams. And what's different about our tutoring versus some other places out there, for one thing, we guarantee satisfaction with all of our services. So you sign up, we make sure that you're happy or you get a full refund. Nobody really asks for that, but it's just sort of something that we do to make sure that there's kind of satisfaction throughout this process. But also, our folks are doing really well raising their scores. On average, we're over 90 points jump on the GMAT, and of course it varies. Some people will start with 740, and then they'll try to bump it up, or 730. Obviously, we're not raising 90 points there, but on average, it's a 90-point jump, and it's a very personalized tutoring service. So somewhere in between like a one-person shop and a large company with a lot of sort of rubrics and structures and standard books, and so it is very customized and personalized, but it's pretty driven as well. We do have some former M7 admissions director on our team, so sort of inside from Wharton and UCLA, and also former interviewers. We said it's M7 here, but really former interviewers across top 10 and even sort of beyond schools, and then top students to network with at many different top schools. Usually we have a lot of different events in different regions as I'm traveling around the world to give presentations and conduct panels like the one I just did, with the 3 other admissions directors tonight, but obviously everything is virtual. So Unfortunately, no in-person events right now. So this is a calendar here, right? For those of you thinking about applying in round two, it's coming up. And I won't spend too long on the calendar because these are chevrons. And if anybody is a consultant, you know that you can just, sort of move them pretty easily. But, the GMAT can take a long time. We have here, try to finish it early November. If you're not done then, we can extend it so we can move this GMAT until the end of December if you really need to, GMAT or GRE. School selection and visits, of course, this is an old slide, so we're not visiting anywhere, but you can definitely research, you can do virtual visits. Essays typically take a couple months, so if you are applying in round two and you haven't hired a consultant yet, definitely reach out, let's have a conversation. Scott, SCOTT at personalmbacoach.com. I'll be more than happy to chat with you about what we have to do. You really want to give, a good couple months to work on the process. Now, if you're watching this and you say, ooh, it's not a couple months now, there's only 6 weeks or so, reach out. We can structure, different offerings based on the number of schools you're applying to, when the deadlines are, et cetera. But this is a quick timeline to keep in mind. The first pitfall is illogical career goals. And we could talk for 30 minutes about career goals, but we're not doing that today. So a couple things that I'll say here are, one, goals should flow well. And I'll try not to read the slides. That would be really boring and I won't get any questions. But the goals should really make sense. So if you are pivoting, now there are 4 different ways to pivot. You can pivot by industry, by function, by geography, and by language. Let's say we're doing all 4 of these pivots. I'm moving to a new country, I'm going to speak a new language and work in a new industry and a new function. That definitely requires a deep explanation. And it doesn't mean that you can't do that, but it means that you really want to tell the reader, why you're making this change. One way to check whether your goal shift is going to make sense to a reader is to think about someone maybe who's not in the space, or maybe not even in business at all. Pick someone who's in medicine, let's say. And I have family members in medicine, so if I might explain my career path to them, and they would say, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I can, that's sort of logical. I understand what you're doing. That's great. And then obviously pick someone that knows the industry and knows what you're doing. In general, right, we want to be decisive and be specific. I had a client yesterday ask me, what if I don't really know what I want to do? It was a brand new client. And I said, don't worry, you would be like most of our clients that we work with. Most people don't know what they want to do. And especially if you're in Latin America, you want to apply to a school in the US, Canada, or Europe, you might want to do something in one of those regions. You might not be an expert in all the different companies, right, and all the different offerings that they have. So that's fine, but we really need to be specific and decisive. So you don't want to have the word or in your goals. You want to be pretty detailed as you think through your career goals. And again, any questions on goals, feel free to just type them into the sort of chat box and we'll be happy to answer them. Next pitfall is about letters of recommendation. Asking your company CEO to write your recommendation letter. That's a pitfall. So try not to do this. Now, let's take a step back. It doesn't mean you cannot ask your CEO to write a rec letter. Certainly possible that that's the best person to write the letter for you, but we don't really want to pay attention to prestige. So if someone has a very high title, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily a better person to write a recommendation letter. You really want to ask someone who will write a really good recommendation letter. Someone who knows you well, who can say, okay, Scott has been a consultant for 3 years and he's done X, Y, Z. Most people only do these things, but he has gone above and beyond by doing this, that, and the other thing. And here's why he would be a valuable addition to your school. Even if someone will write a very, very strong letter, meaning they say, Billy was the best analyst we've ever seen, unless I hear why Billy was the best analyst and what Billy actually did relative to what other people might have done, it might not make a whole lot of sense. And you really want the recommender to be able to compare you to others. And the last point here about non-professional references, it's possible. So say you work at a family business. We have a lot of clients, especially in Latin America, that work for family businesses. And they say, okay, I can't ask mom or I can't ask dad to write the rec letter. Who else? Well, I'm on the board of this, horseback riding nonprofit, and maybe I can ask, someone from that board to kind of write a letter. You definitely can ask someone from a non-professional background to write the rec letter. You just have to make sure that they know you in a lot of detail. And for those just joining, I'm Scott Edinburgh, the founder of Personal MBA Coach. I went to MIT for undergrad, Wharton for my MBA, and I've been running Personal MBA Coach for 13 years. We're talking about top pitfalls to avoid, and we also will go over behind the MBA admissions curtain with admissions director. So we'll go over some of those details at the end. So the next one is about resume, using job description bullets on your resume. Try not to do that. If you're using a bullet that feels like everyone else from your company could have written that bullet, it might not be the right bullet to use. You want to really focus on results. So what did you do? How did you do it? Who did you work with? And try to show leadership, establish your skills, measurable results. Measurable results are really important. Now, it doesn't mean you need to have a number behind every single thing that you've been doing, but you do want to have some numbers, and you do want to explain what you're doing at work and any kind of impact of some of the things that you've done from a project by project sort of standpoint. Most importantly, right, show that you've done your job better. So if you've been promoted quicker than average, bullet 1, promoted 6 months ahead of schedule. That's great. Okay, now I can see. I can see that Stefania has been promoted twice, and that's ahead of what other people have done. So this is not the time to be modest. This is really the time to show them what you've done and how you've done it, especially for schools that don't really ask a lot about things that you've done previously in the essays. You might really want to use the resume as that one time when you can talk a lot about what you've been doing. Next pitfall is not including school specifics, and these are a couple things to think about based on a couple schools. And I know you're applying to schools around the world probably, so maybe not MIT and Kellogg, but let's say you're applying to Kellogg and they have marketing classes. Let's not focus on you being excited to take Kellogg's marketing classes, because maybe everybody knows that they have marketing classes, and if that's all you write, then it doesn't show that you know a lot of things about the school. Similarly, something like business fundamentals or developing analytical strength at MIT doesn't really show me that you know the program and you've done your homework. One other thing that you should think about is not including compliments. The reason I say this is a couple things will happen often a couple things happen if you include a compliment. And when I say include a compliment, I mean, you are one of the best schools for healthcare, and therefore I'm excited to learn from your, quote, esteemed faculty. You don't really get any brownie points for that. These essays are limited in the number of words. You only have a certain number of words that you can actually write. And if you compliment a school, one of two things happens. One, the school kind of knows that they're very good at something, and by complimenting them, it's a waste of words. Or two, maybe they're not so good at that. Perhaps you're pointing out something that they're looking to develop, they're trying to expand. And if you say that they're so great and you're excited to do, XYZ, it might show that you're not super genuine. Show that you've done research and interest. Most importantly, right, mention why you want to join these schools' unique campuses. So you know what they have, you know what you want, and you're being very detailed about what you're going to do on campus and the value that you will add to the campus as well once you get there. Now, we will talk about answering the question in a minute, and that's important to think through because you do want to make sure that you are directly answering the question. But overall, you can definitely talk about the value that you'll be adding onto these campuses, even if you're not mentioning what things you're going to be doing specifically to improve the curriculum. And again, if you have questions and you don't want to answer them or ask them now, feel free to reach out later. My email address is Scott, SCOTT, @personalmbacoach.com. And if you're watching this later, as many of you will be, of course, you can't ask questions live. So visit our website, personalmbacoach.com. Reach out, and we'd be more than happy to have a consultation and discuss what we do. So next is having a vague reason for wanting an MBA. Something like I want to learn business school. I want to learn business school. Something like I want to learn business skills is not a good reason to get an MBA. Now, you might actually want to learn business skills, and that could be what you eventually do in business school, but you really need to be more specific. Now, to be clear, this is not pitfall 1, which is having illogical career goals. The goals are what you want to do, and this is why you want to get the MBA. So schools aren't looking for people that will really just sort of check the box. They're looking for people that exactly know what they want to do, and they've laid out the whole plan. So it's like, here's where I am today. This is what I'm good at. Here's what I've done so far. Here's what I want to do tomorrow. And here's what I need to get from the school in order to get there. And so to have that 30 to 60-second soundbite ends up being pretty important. It shows that you've done your research. It shows that you know what you want to do. It shows that you'll be composed, cool, calm, and collected in the interviews, which is something that the schools are really looking for. So again, things like business knowledge, strong fundamentals. Excuse me. Don't actually really say much of anything. So another pitfall is not answering the question. This funny little logo. This sometimes surprises people because they say, well, of course I'll answer the question. Why would I not answer the question? But honestly, a lot of essays that we see, either first drafts or if people have written something on their own, come from applicants that maybe don't properly answer the question. Sometimes it's just a totally different answer. But more often than not, the answer addresses a part of the question, but it goes into too much depth on maybe a part that's not relevant. So let's say you're applying to a school, I won't use any names here, but let's say you're applying to a school that says, we've reviewed your profile. What do you want to do post MBA? And why is this school the right school for you? Well, in this case, pay attention to the quote, "we reviewed your profile" bit. What that means is you really don't want to rehash everything that you've done. If you're working with a consultant, and we often have people do things that are a little bit different from what's outlined in the question because we know what works. Know what these admissions directors are thinking. I might be traveling with them, or might actually be sort of friends with some of them, and so have a sense for what's working, not working. Plus, we've done this. We've done thousands and thousands of essays over the years. We have former admissions directors on our team. But if you're not working with somebody, then just pay attention to the question specifically. If they don't ask about your goals, don't write about them. If they don't ask what you've done previously, don't start the essay with 180 words about your family background and why you chose the job that you chose and all the great leadership things that you've been doing. They don't ask that, so they probably don't want to know it. Or at least they don't want to know it in this particular question. So the last thing I'll point out here is schools really place varying importance on specific criteria. What this means is, for one school, it might be important to think about your analytical experiences and what you've done from an analysis standpoint. For another school, maybe communication and teamwork is more important. I think everyone's going to be interested in leadership, so that's probably fair to assume. Next pitfall is using too many buzzwords. As you can tell, I've given this talk, or maybe you can't tell, but I've given this talk hundreds of times. Perhaps I should be more fluid than I am. We'll see. Everybody can learn. But the jokes aside, leave the consulting talk for for the concierge lounge. I don't know how many people are traveling now, but try not to use any buzzword. And so if you're using a word that is common to other folks in your industry, but might not be common to people from outside of your industry, I might consider that a buzzword, and perhaps you should leave that out of this process. Words that are common to you may mean nothing to admissions directors in the admissions committee. And when I say may mean nothing, it's one of two things, right? One, you're having your application read by a director that knows your job inside and out, knows your industry, knows what you do, would understand every term that you write down. But they want to see that you can explain yourself to a group of students that are not like-minded, that might not actually know you and might not know your background. So you have to talk in ways that the average MBA audience can sort of follow and understand. And the second, right, it's possible that the term is just super technical and someone reading it might not know it. And if you write something that the reader doesn't understand, you're going to lose some points there. They might be confusing, or if they're not confusing, they might be unnecessary. So instead, what do you want to do? Really focus on transferable skills, results, personal characteristics here. And again, your MBA resume and cover letters should differ from those that you use for jobs. This is an important point to call out. Sometimes I'll get an applicant and they'll say, "No, my resume is pretty good. Let's just work on the essays." Well, Personal MBA Coach, we do comprehensive packages only, so we work on all aspects, and that's how we have the highest success rates, and our clients get the most scholarships of anyone else in the industry, over 6 million last year. But our services aside, right, your work really should be different from what you do to get a job. And the main reason for that is you're not applying for a job. So you don't need technical skills. You don't need experience in X or experience in Y. Business schools want to see how you've succeeded overall, who you've worked with, what you've done, results, teamwork, a lot of different things. And it's not just being an Argus expert, which is an industry term that you might or might not understand. Next is lack of consistency across the application. So, right, your application should paint a picture of one person, and that's a line I read word for word, so apologies for that. But it's worth reading because you're one applicant. And what happens as admissions directors or evaluators or readers read applications is they'll read more than one in any one given day. Maybe that surprises you. So we're reading a lot of applications. Okay, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 20, right? This is going to vary based on the school. But they're reading a lot of people. And so after they read you, you want to make it easy for them to have some mental notes. Even if you've done 12 great things, I don't want to tell them 12 great things, because then as they step up and maybe go to the water cooler, nobody's sort of in an office now, you want to make it easy for them to say, hey, Richard, I need to tell you about this applicant, right? This person really jumps off the chart for these reasons, and maybe they only have 30 seconds, or perhaps they're fighting for you in a sort of committee meeting where they're coming together to discuss applicants. So you want everything to fit together, right? One picture. Application pieces, so recommendation letters, that's part of this. Show it makes you unique and have a theme that carries throughout the application. Now, to be clear, this does not mean you can only have one theme. So if you are a musician and you write everything about music and nothing else, maybe I wonder what else you do. Maybe I wonder what you'll do on campus if you're not playing music. So you do want to showcase that you are a bit well-rounded. But that said, at the end of the day, an application that's not consistent may not be genuine. So you really want to focus on the consistency here. And again, any questions, feel free to post them. I know a lot of you will be watching this delayed, so we might not get to as many questions in this video, but I'll go over some questions that we usually get. Next is too much repetition or too many red and white bikes, right? And this obviously sort of is contradictory from lack of consistency, but you only have so many places where you can highlight your strengths, and you don't want to use the same story in 3 different examples. I'll tell you an example of a client last year who applied to a number of schools. I think it was 5 or 6 schools. We usually do like 5 to 7, and he got into MIT, Wharton, and Chicago Booth. And there was one story that was really good. I mean, it was just A++ story. The next best story was like a B. This was the hallmark of his career. But I didn't advise him to write about it in multiple different parts of the application because I knew the recommenders were going to cover it. And I knew both recommenders would cover it. So we kind of wanted to talk about different examples. I'd rather get an A+ and a B example than just one A+ example. So you don't want to repeat, with few words. You want to use them wisely and show them your different stories and what you've done. So next pitfall is not properly engaging with the school. This is what life used to look like before coronavirus, and I would go to all these events and we'd be shaking hands and handing out things, and we're not doing that anymore. But you can still engage virtually at events like this. Admissions directors are people, genuine people, right? That love their schools. They love what they're doing. It's very much a passion-driven industry. Show them that you love their schools as well, or that you're trying to figure out whether you do love their schools. So convince them that you want to go. How can you do that? Talk to students, right? Talking to students is a great way. Some schools actually track this, and they'll see, Scott applied to X university. He didn't visit, of course. He didn't go to any virtual events. He didn't talk to students. He didn't call up people from the clubs. I saw he registered for, one sort of virtual session, but he never showed up. And then I say that this is my top choice for business school in my essay. Let's just say I might not get accepted if that were to happen, right? You really want to be genuine. Showing interest is important, but it's not important for every school. Some schools place, a lot of importance on this criteria, or rather, this is criteria that they use to evaluate. And if you don't demonstrate interest, you probably won't be accepted by the school. But not every school does. Some schools actually don't place any importance on this. So you really have to think about by school as you strategize your time where you want to be using it most wisely. But obviously, if you visit schools or virtually visit them and ask questions, you'll learn for you. So even if it doesn't help the school, it could certainly help you to make some good decisions. And then you want to ask smart questions. We actually have a file for questions to ask at events or interviews. And certain questions are good to ask. Other schools maybe aren't so good to ask. So yeah, whether you have our sort of file or not, make sure to ask some smart questions that you can't get answered anywhere else. These are the top pitfalls. Now, here's a little bit of a sneak preview. We have another presentation that we'll be giving. Watch the YouTube, watch our YouTube channel, visit www.personalmbacoach.com. We have a lot of videos. I have interviews with admissions directors. I'll be interviewing a Yale School of Management admissions director this Friday. We have interview with Michigan admissions director. We have ones with Columbia, with MIT. So a lot of sort of insight on our website. Here's a little bit of a behind the scenes look from the admissions standpoint. So first, who is on the admissions committee? Well, this varies by school size. Some committees will include recruiting staff, career office staff, maybe even outside readers. They're not full-time employees. Larger programs might have second-year students reading applications, interviewing, or even making recommendations. Some schools will have academic program staff, faculty, deans, right? So schools are having a lot of different people potentially weigh in on whether you will be a valuable addition to the class. And one thing I like to tell our clients is try to not have your application sent to a career services representative, because sometimes if career services does weigh in, it's because your goals aren't great. And they say, I don't know if Maria can really accomplish this. Stephen kind of has a really aggressive goal. He says he wants to be a partner, at a VC firm, and he's in like ed tech right now. I'm just not sure that I see that happening. What do you think? Do you think he can accomplish this? And if they see that there's a mismatch, we don't want you to come on campus and be disappointed. So that's important. And one way that we can help with that, by the way, is to help you to figure out what the right goals are. We have this mini goal statement exercise that we have all of our Personal MBA Coach clients work through as a first step in our process. And you'll get very specific advice on what's realistic, what's not realistic, as you're thinking about your goals. So what's admissions committee looking for? Regardless of the committee, right, we're looking for a few different things. Academic ability. So this is evaluated based off your report card, right? So your undergrad grades and the courses. And I say and the courses because getting straight A's doesn't get you into business school. I'd rather see a lower GPA from a top school with really, really tough classes that someone has taken than a slightly higher GPA where we've taken all soft courses. That said, the GPA is important. So, it's definitely a combination of both of those things. And we see a correlation, right? So there's a correlation between test score and success in the first year of the MBA program. That's why the GMAT is used, or the GRE is used, or the executive assessment is used, because it's a predictor to how you'll do in the classroom. It's not a perfect predictor. There's not perfect correlation, but there certainly is some correlation there. Next is relevant work experience. So what are you going to share in the classroom? If you're fantastic, you've done, you had a 800 on the GMAT, you have a 4.0 GPA, great letters of recommendation, but your experience just isn't robust enough. I might hesitate as to what you will be adding to the classroom, right? Can you talk about work? Can you talk about companies? Right? So the professional experience is really important. Then you want to have, an awareness of your abilities and your flaws. And this is in here because, look, nobody's perfect. I am far from perfect. And there's a lot that I can improve upon every day. And feel free to email me any feedback from this video, and I'll continue to try to improve. So you really want to be honest, right, in this process and think about, what are you good at? What are you not good at? And as you're thinking about the relevant work experience, what flaws do you have in your work experience to date? How can business school help you to maybe make up for those flaws? So a little bit about, us and the schools that we kind of send folks to. We send people to schools all around the world. We only had a chance to write, a certain number of sort of school names here and put the logos. But again, it was over 6 million last year alone. And so that's more than any other place out there. A lot of people get full rides. We had multiple clients that are getting paid to go to business school now. So yes, they will invest in our services, but they're getting full ride, plus they're getting a stipend. And so our clients get into schools all around the world, and this is a subset of those. And for those just sort of joined late, a little bit of background about me: MIT for undergrad, Wharton for MBA, and I've been running Personal MBA Coach since 2008. And then there's a little bit more about what we do. We offer complete tutoring support for the GMAT, GRE, and executive assessment. And we have in-house software that we use to guide through the services as far as modules, sort of sample questions, thousands of answers, full-length exams. And our tutoring services is very customized, very personalized, but also pretty robust in the sense that our clients are raising their scores on average 90 points. And we offer full guarantee on all of our services. So you sign up, you don't like it, you tell us, and we'll just refund you. Nobody really asks that, but it's just something that we offer to make sure that you're very happy with the process. It's not like you're buying a TV. You get the TV or you don't get the TV. It is very subjective. We do have former M7 admissions insight on our team, and I'm on the board for the Association of International Graduate Admissions Consultants, which is a group of 7 board members globally that work pretty closely with admissions to do different things throughout the year. We have an annual conference with the admissions directors where we'll be analyzing these fake profiles and debating who's getting accepted and rejected and why. So it's a nice little behind the scenes look into the process to see how they make their decisions. We offer support throughout the entire process from early planning. So I'm not applying to school, for the next, 1, 2, 3 years. But it's important to think about how we can improve ourselves between now and when we actually, do apply. We have former M7 and top 10 and 15 admissions interviewers on our team and clients to network with at all of the top schools. So a little bit more about what we do. We start with brainstorming session, and this is a very high-level overview. We will give a much more detailed analysis if you are interested in reaching out. So contact information is here, scott@personalmbacoach.com, and the website again is www.personalmbacoach.com. But we have a brainstorming session. It's about an hour, and we learn about you. So you'll tell us about your background, passions, and challenges, hobbies, struggles. Really think through what are the key points about you that we might want to highlight. What should go in the resume, essays, rec letters, that sort of thing. We'll develop your story, figure out, what you're about. So what are we highlighting about you? We'll go through school selection. Pick the right schools for you. And school selection can be easy for some people. It can be hard for others. So we'll figure out based on your personality, profile, chances of getting in, career prospects, right? What are the right programs for you? Editing of your resume, essays, full essay editing. We have essay guides that tell you what our secret sauce is, what to do for each school, how to vary that. We help you with letters recommendation, and then interviews. And we have a team of former interviewers to help with mock interviews. So here's a little downloadable if you want to download anything. It's personalmbacoach.com/kickstart signup. We have a lot of different videos on our website. Visit the website. You can hear from former clients about what we do and read their testimonials as well. We have some videos from them and also written feedback. So at this point, I'm going to go to the Q&A. I don't think we have a lot of questions here, but we might have some questions, and so we'll certainly go here to see if there's anything that we can answer. So one question that we often get from applicants, and actually got earlier in the presentation as well, is this the right time to be thinking about applying to schools, right? So you have COVID coming. There are a lot of different COVID's here. A lot of different sort of considerations. How should I be thinking about my application strategy? So look, I will tell you that you should apply at the time that's right for you. It's a long-term investment, right? This business school, and don't think about what's happening in the next 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 12 years down the line, 12 months rather. It's even really 12 years, right? 10, 20, 30 years. If you are at the time in your career that it's right for you, then business school is the right venture for you to explore. And I don't know what will be happening from a COVID standpoint. A lot of people are virtual, a lot of people are in person. What will happen in a year from now? Who knows? It could be the same, could be a lot better. I like to think personally that either things will be getting better pretty soon, or maybe this will stay the same way for a long time. And in either way, regardless of which situation actually comes to fruition in the long run, either way, waiting a year doesn't really change things too much. So if it's the right time for you, then you should certainly be applying. We are seeing a lot of people apply to school. So numbers are up, application numbers are up, people are interested. it's a great time to hide out, in case things aren't maybe going as swimmingly for you in your job, or you're tired, or you might not get a promotion, or you got fired. There are a lot of reasons why it could be a good time for you to be applying to school. And you really want to, again, think about sort of your career. If it's a good investment for you, then it's a nice time to be thinking about things. Some folks will always ask about, like, let's say goals, and how aggressive to be for the goals. I talked a little bit about goals earlier, but you want the goal to be really, really achievable. You don't get any points by writing a goal that is just not realistic. You really want your goals to be realistic. If you're going to take a stretch, and you'll talk about private equity, and you're coming from a very niche little sort of financial consulting group, well, maybe going to a big PE shop won't actually happen for you right after business school, right? You might need to take some investment banking sort of courses. You might need to work in banking for a couple of years to really improve yourself. If you can't convince yourself that it's the right time, or rather that it's the right goal for you, then I'm not sure that you'd be able to convince an admissions director. So a lot to think about. Again, if anyone has any questions or want any additional feedback on your profile, we do offer consultations where we can just evaluate you and help you to think through what the right strategy would be for yourself as you're thinking through this process. Feel free to reach out, www.personalmbacoach.com, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. We really appreciate you coming to listen today, and it's great to sort of virtually meet some of you. Best of luck, stay safe, and look forward to being in touch soon.